Are we live? Whoa. Hello, welcome to a stream. Hope you are all well. I am a minute early to my own stream, but that is okay. Let's make sure that everyone knows. Okie dokie. I hope you're all having a wonderful Thursday evening. We're set up. I have a new camera, which you should be able to see. So I should look a lot better. We're in 720p now. We have a slightly improved, where is it? Phone cam. Unfortunately, we're stuck at like not very many pixels, as you might be able to see down here. But there doesn't seem to be much I can do about that. The phone cam is actually a phone. Not that well, yeah. And over USB, you can only do so much, I guess. Let's get this lined up again. Alright, so today we're going to be taking a look at the driver core. Let's see. We have got an issue on Linux 5.13, which is related to the display and the DRM, or direct rendering management. The DRM subsystem, which is basically responsible for like graphics on Linux. And so what has happened is over the last few years, even a new kind of framework called firmware devlink has been built. And what firmware devlink basically aims to do is create links between nodes in device tree and kind of make the kernel be able to much better understand how everything is dependent on other things. So it basically means that it can much more intelligently turn on and off resources and clocks and stuff as they're needed. It's a very, very cool thing. And what actually happened is back on 5.12 RC1, they tried to enable it. It's been in the kernel for for almost a year now, but it's been in permissive mode, which is essentially where it runs, but it doesn't actually do anything. And they tried to enable it in 5.12 RC1, and a bunch of stuff broke because it plays with the probe order of devices. So it means that drivers can probe in the wrong order, and then all of a sudden, like, your device doesn't come up anymore, which is not too good. So they reverted that commit and set it back to permissive mode for 5.12, but they decided that 5.13 was the one, and it's been enabled. So yeah, unfortunately, it breaks for us. It got tested on the Snapdragon 845, as well as what is it? SC7180. That's the new one that Linero are looking at, the Snapdragon 7C compute. And the problem is the tests that they did were for external like displays connected via DisplayPort, because none of the devices that they test on at Linero are like phones. Well, that isn't entirely true. I mean, they do test on phones, but evidently this one got skipped because if we boot 5.13 like I am about to do now, let's see, we should actually, yeah, so we're currently running 5.13, and as you can see down here, oh, this is hiding a little bit. As you can see down here, the phone is working just fine. The display is up. Everything is fine and dandy. Except that's because we have firmware dev link set to permissive. Oh no syntax. Grab colors. Okay, yeah. Here we go. So we have firmware dev link permissive. What I'm about to do now is build a new kernel and set firmware dev link to on. And you'll be able to see what happens. Actually, so exciting news. Sorry, it's all streams over here, cameras over here. It's a little bit awkward. Okay. Yeah. So we have UART now. If you follow me on Twitter, you would probably have seen that we can now. So, oh, here it is. Let's see. Bit blurry. So we got a phone hooked up, we got a UART adapter, and we can get UART off this thing, which is pretty exciting. Here we go. So what we can do is run minicom, and this will give us a serial connection, and you should be able to watch this. Let's see. How should we do this? That up here, bring this down in here, I guess. Yeah, so hopefully this will just kind of build and work. Phone should... Oh no. Phone cam is dead. Oh gosh. Oh dear. I think the oh, the phone camera phone is died. Why has this happened then? Oh. Tell you why. Gosh. So this is not very good at all. I've just bricked the phone cam. You see, I wrote some wonderful scripts to do all of the like automatic reboot and flashing of boot partitions and stuff for me. And because both of these phones are plugged in, what it does is it looks for a connected device and it checks ADB, and then it checks for like a device connected over SSH. But it checks ADB first, and because I'm using ADB to get the stream from the phone camera, it showed up first, and so it just rebooted our phone camera phone and flashed a boot image to it. Bricked the stream cam. Let's see, we might be able to recover this. Ooh, OxygenOS 10. Boot image, let's see if it'll work. So we're going to have to be a little bit careful. Oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't boot. That's not what we want. Maybe we can switch slots. We have a backup, I suppose. Right. Well, while this phone boots back up, I will unplug it so we don't actually accidentally do that again. And let's try once more, shall we? You won't be able to see the phone, but you should be able to see it do its stuff. Oh. We'll have to reboot this manually. There you go. That's the bootloader. And we just flashed the boot image, and now it's going to boot into Linux 5.13. Maybe. Maybe not. The phone itself has a black screen. And I don't have UART enabled, because we are missing patches. Okie doke. Let's go grab some patches, shall we? This new GitHub UI is really confusing. Enable debug UART. So this 5.13 branch is actually the branch I'm using for the haptics driver. Oh dear. It looks like the phone did boot, but oh, it's asking for a sudo password. That's all right. There we go. And oh dear. Still no UART. We're gone a bit haywire today so far, hasn't it? The phone has done this. It is let's see. Can we fix the focus here? It's just a lot of multicolored pixels. Oh, there we go. And that is what happens on 5.13. Sometimes it's just black. Sometimes we get that. Sometimes it crashes. Ooh. There you go. And yeah, but we need to get logs, and the best way to do that is with UART. It doesn't seem to be working. So here we go. Yeah, as you can see, it's not very happy. Not very happy at all. Everything is mostly booting up normally except for the graphics, which are very, very, very broken. So, it has been a little while since I looked at this, but the real source of the hardware issue for us is this kind of warning that this clock didn't update, which is a bit of a bad sign. And ooh. So yeah, I suspect that it is because the parts of the graphics driver probe in the wrong order, essentially. But the problem is that's quite hard to debug because the actual graphics on like OnePlus 6 to bring up, we have the MSM DRM like core. We have the Adreno, the actual GPU, which isn't actually needed for display bring up. So I think we can discount that. Then we have the is it MDP5 that we use? I forget. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, MDSS, MDP with the panel attached to it. And so there's a lot of stuff going on basically. And if we take a look at, let's clean this up a little bit, shall we? There we go. All right, so take a look at the MDSS. We had this MDSS node, And then inside, connected to it, is the like MDP DPU, and this has kind of it does stuff. It does stuff. Also attached to the MDSS is two DSI connectors. Basically, these do the actual talking to the panel. The protocol is called MIPI DSI, and so there are each of these has 4 lanes in it, and there are 2 of them. Some panels, so if you wanted to drive like a 4K panel, then what you can actually do is you can take DSI 0 and DSI 1 and you can like combine them and you can double the bandwidth for a big panel. But thankfully, we don't have to worry about any of that, because that would be even more of a disaster. So on here there are the in and output endpoints, and the way that device tree kind of works is you model the hardware as a tree, and so, well, I suppose it's more of a graph than a tree because we have dependencies. So for example, in the DSI in endpoint, it specifies this remote endpoint as this DPU def out, which does the same thing. So there's they both depend on each other, which is basically a dependency cycle. And then of course we have panel in instead. It gets a little bit complicated essentially, and for whatever reason, with a HDMI or DisplayPort panel, it works reasonably, like it works fine on 5.13, but with our DSI panels on the OnePlus 6 and like Poco F1, doesn't work, and we end up with garbled output on the display because they probe in the wrong order, and then the clocks don't initialize properly, and we end up with that. So we have this email to look through. Just here. Essentially, like, yeah. So we got a few debugging steps to try. What we've kind of established so far is it's probably a race condition, right? But yeah. So before we can keep debugging this, we want to get UART output so that we can properly see what's going on. Because if when all of this spam is happening in the kernel logs, the device takes quite a lot longer to boot up, and it kind of sucks. So I wonder why we aren't getting serial. Oh. Maybe this label is a bit misleading. I think we might be missing some config options. Oh, oops. Here we go. Oh, it is so hard to find what you're looking for in here. Serial QCOM Jenny console. No, it's enabled. Whoa. Oh. Alright, I guess we will just try and do a clean build. Let's make sure you can actually see what's going on here a bit. Now we probably don't want to go build a kernel using all 16 threads here because it might cause some issues with the stream. All right. And let's hope that the stream doesn't die now. Oh, fun. Oh, we have Visual Studio Code's IntelliSense running in the background using 2 cores as well. Absolutely fantastic. All right. In the meantime, it's been awesome to see more and more people getting hold of OnePlus 6s and testing out Mainline and postmarketOS and Mobian as well, of course. It's been genuinely really exciting to see people making like use of what we're doing for these devices essentially. I'm very excited to see how people start to use like once we get more features working. For example, we are relatively close to getting to like shipping in postmarketOS working mobile data and SMS, which is honestly kind of unbelievable to me, given that just over a year ago I barely had the touchscreen working. So yeah, to be able to like to be able to have all this stuff up and running and have support merged in the kernel is fantastic. We actually did get some more patches accepted, or rather like accepted, posted. They'll be included in 5.14, including what were they? They were so we'll be fixing some of the memory issues that we had, where the device would just like go to crash dump mode when it boots up. That isn't entirely resolved just yet, but certainly for the about like half of the crashes have been fixed. So I originally thought that it was always the same issue causing it, but I eventually figured out that we weren't fully protecting the memory regions that we need to protect. And so what could happen is the kernel would allocate memory right next to a protected region, and it would be like close enough that the hardware on the device would go, hang on, you can't do that, and we'd crash, which is not great. But yeah, so that's been fixed, but unfortunately there's another cause. If you're doing a particularly like memory intensive thing, I guess, like you're copying large amounts of data and churning like memory allocations, then it can cause a crash like that. And I'm starting to become suspicious that it actually isn't protected memory at this point. It's something a little more nefarious, like the memory mapping is dodgy and interfering weirdly. But that will be incredibly difficult to debug because there's just so many things it could be. And just looking at specific memory addresses may not give us any clues. We might have to look a lot deeper. And really, don't know that much about kind of how it all works, so it will be quite a big learning curve to figure it out. But hey, hopefully we can get it resolved, because it would be fantastic to get the stability up to like what you'd expect from a phone. Although, to be fair, the crashes only occur under like particularly intensive loads. So if all you're doing is like playing some music or even watching videos, it's actually perfectly fine. I've had my OnePlus 6 on running postmarketOS for like 2 or 3 days straight, and like using it to play music without hitting any crashes. Oh, my camera has turned off. It's back now. There's an unfortunate issue with this camera that I'm using, which is it is apparently not meant to be used for streaming. And so to avoid like some extra taxes or something, Canon have a hard limit that after 30 minutes the display output turns off until you press a button. You can use Canon's EOS utility on Windows, and it will like just disable that limitation over USB, but unfortunately the like Linux equivalents like Gphoto 2 don't seem to have that capability. At least not that I've found so far, but I haven't looked too far into it. So it means, yeah, every like 30 minutes, gotta press a button, which sucks. Let's see. Still no UART output on the phone, which is really console equals /dev /tty_msm0. Oh dear, it's been a long day. Let's disable SSH. Not sudo password. That's what we're trying to say. So we can actually reboot the phone. All right. We have formatted this OnePlus 6 now because it refused to boot up otherwise. If we're lucky, we'll be able to get it working again by the end of the stream. Although it's going to be booting an old version of Android. Here we go. Oh gosh. The only problem with Minicom is if you resize the terminal, it clears whatever was here, or at least on my terminal emulator. But I don't think it matters too much. So, as you probably didn't see, because it went by very fast, we get hit by this, and at the same time the display comes up with these like garbled colors here. And it's not good. It's not good at all. It would really suck for us if 5.13 released with broken display. It would not be too good. But yeah, it appears like nobody except for us on 5.13 is actually using the like capability to use a DSI display. On Snapdragon 845 at least. I think on the 7C, the compute boards, people have used DSI displays and tested it, but yeah, so the next thing that we want to try is enabling initcool debug 1. So let's try that, shall we? Right. Hold this up. Oh, so many things happening at once. Okay. Right, here we go. I don't know what initcool debug 1 enables. I think we will have to enable more debugging. Oh no, here we go. Very interesting. Let's pull it out. And open it up here. All right. Ooh. We didn't even catch the beginning of boot. That's a lot of output, huh? All right, so these cyclic dependencies are part of Firma Devlink. We don't care about any of these. These are all for like very low level debugging. Any other logs? So we also want to go and check drivers base dd.c, and we'll have to see what's in there. This is going to be pretty difficult, I think. Well, our phone booted, so we can not do the hard thing and hit no on all of the OnePlus tracking. Connect the Wi-Fi. Oh, this might take a little while, huh? I can't believe that's 10 minutes into the stream. I immediately brick the camera I'm using. Well, I can't believe it, to be honest. It's just been one of those days. Alright. We need to do something a bit more interesting, don't we? Whilst we voice assistant. This is the one that crashes. This happened to me last time. Tapping the more button and it doesn't do anything. Yeah, you know what? Ah, that sucks. Last time this happened, because I forgot about it, I ended up having to basically, what was it? I had to like restart the setup and not add a Google account so that it wouldn't ask about Google Assistant. Okay. It's a bit broken. It's a bit broken. Let's go reboot the bootloader and then to recovery and factory reset again. Oh yeah. All right. Well, what a throwback to messing about with custom recoveries on old phones. I used to have I used to daily drive a phone running Android Gingerbread, I think. It was a really old Motorola. It used to be my dad's. It was a waterproof phone. And what that meant back in the day is that it had like rubber uh, what do you call it? Like flaps that would basically like act as stoppers, and you had one for the headphone jack, one for the USB port. You plug them all in, and then it made the phone like kind of splash resistant. Like you could drop it in a glass of water and it would survive ish, maybe. That was quite fun. I do miss when you could just pull the backs off phones. It had like the back locked in place because, of course, if it just kind of clipped on, then it wouldn't be able to make a very good seal. So you had to like press it on. There was a rubber like gasket locked in place. I wonder what it's called. Oh god, there's no way I'm gonna find it. Ooh, Android Gingerbread. It had the. Oh, it was the Motorola Defy Plus. Yeah, no way. Wow. Oh, this thing was a lot of fun. 4 buttons down at the bottom. Had a dedicated search button. You know, for when you wanted to search. Absolutely. Fantastic. It's a shame that that one died. It got a bit of a smashed screen. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, doke. Let's go through Android setup again. This is not the direction that I expected this stream to go in, but not very interesting for you if you don't get to actually see what's going on. No, I do not want push notifications. Thank you. In other news, we, as you probably already know, um, recently got set up with automatic kernel updates in postmarketOS, which is quite a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it means that for now my where is it? My custom zips are probably not going to continue to be released because they have to use a custom initramfs, and that would be erased on kernel update. So that means that basically you'd be in postmarketOS, you'd do an update, and your phone would not boot anymore. It would just boot to kind of a like an error screen, I guess, because it would be unable to find the postmarketOS like rootfs, because with these zips it's kept as an image on user data. Oh dear. All right, here we go. Now we get signed into Google Play. What jolly good fun. Spell my email address correctly. Easier said than done. So I am curious because I mostly just work on this stuff, but because I spend all my time working on postmarketOS, I don't really end up like using it that much because like if I'm gonna go do postmarketOS stuff, to me that is doing development and stuff, and not so much like, oh yeah, I want to see if I can get apps to work and things, because it's just a bit too much to do, I guess. I know I am a bit of a traitor, but oh dear, this phone is not happy at all. It's refusing to do anything because it's running an older version. I can't install apps. Oh, I'm so sorry. I picked my desk, right? So I'm gonna have to go put this on charge. And it can go and do updates by itself. But yeah, I want to know what people are doing. What are you doing with postmarketOS? I am very curious. And like, what would you like to see in these streams? Because I'd very much like to stream more often. It's just hard to like build up things to work on, really. Oh, I have another phone right here. So why don't we use this one? Yeah. And we can stream over Wi-Fi this time. All right. Need a charger. I'm not gonna risk plugging this into my computer because I will wipe it too, and that would be really bad because this is my phone. The problem with developing on phones is I rarely end up with a phone to use that actually works. I'm always too busy breaking them. Well, too busy. I mean, too curious. So for example, this is my OnePlus 7 Pro, and I can use it as a phone for phone things, but it'd be a lot more interesting to be able to like start working on mainline on the Snapdragon 855 in this, because currently we're kind of lacking support for like a lot of things there. The display on this phone is interesting. It's a 1440p display panel, and as a result, it uses display stream compression, which has recently been worked on. Vinod, I'm not sure if that is the correct pronunciation. At Lenovo managed to get it to work on the Pixel 3 XL, which is also 1440p. Hey, phone cam is back. Oh, let's just zoom in. Oh dear. The zoom controls are not very not very ideal. Okie doke, there we go. Perfect. Now you can see exactly how awful this looks. Booting 5.13. yeah, so display stream compression has kind of very early support in mainline, but at the minute, a lot of things are hard coded specifically for the Pixel 3 and for STM845. Meanwhile, on SM8150, the Snapdragon 855, there's like basically no support for the. Actually, I don't think that's true. I don't know the state of support for the DRM subsystem on that SoC. All right. So it looks like these 5.13 bugs are going to be a little too difficult to try and solve on stream. So I think we'll take a look at something else instead. We have a new Plasma mobile release, I think. And I haven't tried it out yet. So let's do that. Wow. Yeah, let's just make sure that everything is good here. OnePlus enchilada. Username Plasma Mobile. Oh. We're going to want to change the number of jobs. Because otherwise, oh, here we go. Yeah. Otherwise the stream might die. Jobs. All right, let's do this. For those unaware, or curious right now, as like, so a large part of the reason that I wanted to get automatic kernel updates to work properly was because you can now download pre-built images for the OnePlus 6. If you want to install postmarketOS on your OnePlus 6, all you need is a computer with fast boot, and that's it. So you can go download the images, and then you can just flash them. In fact, we could do that now. So rather than do this, we can go to mirror.postmarketOS.org, head to images, BPO, Edge, OnePlus Enchilada, Plasma Mobile, and we go June 15th. So 2 days ago. I think this was before the release, but that's okay, because we can update. There's a boot image. Hopefully these don't take too long to download. And we'll stick them in a random folder, and we'll extract them. I've always found it confusing to compress individual files for some reason. I know it makes absolutely no sense, but to me, having like grown up using Windows and playing around there, you get like a zip or a like raw archive or whatever, and it was always like you'd open it and it'd be like opening a folder. And then to be on Linux where you'd open or you'd double click on a compressed file and it would just like decompress it, or worse, like open it in a text editor, was always a bit strange. Why do I use Chrome and Visual Studio Code? I am a bit lazy, really. I mean, I used Firefox for a long time, and it's great, but the number of websites that I go to that just like don't work properly because it's Firefox, really sucks. And that just kind of put me off over a long enough period of time. I also was doing some web development a little while ago, I think, and Firefox, like developer stuff, it's just not quite as nice, unfortunately. Like, you know, Firefox is great, but when it comes down to it, when I keep hitting all these issues, and for example, stuff like on my laptop, which has a touchscreen, to be fair, actually, Firefox on a touchscreen is not too bad at all to use. It does work quite well. You do have to just play with it a little bit, but you know, I've used Chrome and Firefox, gone back and forth quite a few times, and for now, I've just kind of settled on Chrome because it's just nicer, and it is bad, and I should definitely move back to Firefox soon. As for VS Codes, I have had to use VS Code Live Share quite a few times recently, relatively recently, and that's only available on the Microsoft like licensed Visual Studio Code product. The open source versions like Codium or CodeOSS, I don't think support it. I could be wrong about that. I am using Chrome because I'm not exactly sure why. Oh yeah, the Google guys were very bad and banned the Chromium package maintainers from using the Google Chrome API keys for sync. So if you want to use sync, then you're stuck with like Chrome, which is bad. Anyway, yeah, but you know, like personally, I think it is like really bad that the kind of, in order to use software that actually respects your freedoms and like respects the user, you always have to give up so many things, and it can be really hard to find that balance. So when it comes to stuff like using a phone, right now I use an Android phone, and I'd really rather not. Like, I know for sure it's possible to go without Google Apps and use an open source Android spinoff, but unfortunately, you become so limited in the apps that work, and all of the ones that are like important to me, like social media apps, so that I can actually use my phone to talk to people, are just very hard to get working. There's so many things that you have to give up, and at some point you kind of have to think like, is it worth it? And I think for software that I'm actively contributing to, I think that's good, because it means to me, so like, I want postmarketOS to be usable, so I contribute to it. I don't daily drive it yet because, well, I don't own a device that can, and if I did, I still think there would be too many issues for it. But I won't stop contributing to it because I want it to be a viable alternative to kind of like what we're stuck with now, which is I open Google Chrome and it says, do you want to turn on light mode? What light mode is on Chrome on Android is basically every single request that you make doesn't go to the website that you're trying to access. It goes to Google, and then Google requests the website. They receive the data back. They strip out stuff that they intelligently think you don't need and forward it onto you. And that's a really, really cool feature. It saves data. It makes browsing like faster at the cost of latency. So if you're loading big pages, then it will happen faster in light mode. But of course, if all you're loading is like bare HTML pages, then it'll be slower because of the increased latency. But obviously the downside is Google see everything that you're doing, and it's anonymized for sure, or at least they would like you to think that it is. I actually don't know if it is. And that's the trade-off that you're making. You're selling your data for the like improved experience. And I think it's a very difficult line to walk. So if, for example, this like light mode service was offered by a completely open source non-profit foundation that like maintained it as a service, and you could get it supported in like all of the kind of mainstream web browsers, there would still be people who would be unhappy with it because of course it means you're doing you're giving away your data. The way that Google, I presume that it uses some like AI cleverness to like intelligently strip out data that it knows that you won't want. And the only way that they can build up that like knowledge of what data to strip out but still send the user something that actually works is by analyzing traffic. So they have to look at the data from users. They can anonymize it, but they have to look at it. And there will always be people who are unhappy with that. And there's always a risk that if it's possible to tie their logs to you, then you know there's a paper trail essentially, and it would be possible to figure out your browsing history. There's always a trade-off between privacy and like functionality, and it's a really tricky line to walk. I haven't actually tried micro G. I have used Lineage OS quite a few times, and again, it's like you use it, and I don't know if this is just my experience, or if I'm just really picky about this stuff, but like the kind of bugs that I encounter using any non-stock or even sometimes the stock firmware on my Android phones, it is so incredibly frustrating. I tweeted about a recent issue with the OnePlus 7 Pro where, so the way the panel works in there is it's got a 1440p mode and a 1080p mode. And if the panel is running in 1080p, then the phone sends it a 1080p video stream and it upscales it like on panel in hardware. And what was happening is, well, of course, the kernel has to change the panel mode, Android has to change resolution. And what was happening is Android was like switching to 1080p and switching back again rapidly, and it would just result in this like really weird glitch effect. And it was just happening constantly, and it just makes the phone basically unusable because the screen is just glitching out all the time. Lineage OS, I tried briefly on this phone, and I think it was okay. I have generally like had a bad track record with Lineage OS. On the OnePlus 6, the battery life was not really ideal. Right now I'm running CR Droid, I think. Just kind of picked at random as something Android 11y. with gaps, yeah, and it's okay. There's a bug where sometimes when trying to unlock the phone, it will just refuse to actually read your fingerprint. You have to type your passcode in. That happens quite a lot, and that's quite frustrating. Sometimes you'll type your passcode in, and it will just stay. And you hit like unlock, it just stays there, and it's like, why can nothing work properly? You know, at the end of the day, I spend so much time working on phones that the actual phone that I use, I want it to just work. I really don't want to have to spend like hours and days setting it up to actually get a usable experience. I don't think I should have to. I know that's why a lot of people, particularly in the tech industry, buy Apple products. Because when you buy an iPhone, it just works. Like, that's the experience that you pay for. I very much doubt that I will go down that route because Apple are very bad in their, like, you know, respect for human rights. And that's not something that I want to support. But yeah, really, it's just that, like, I just don't want to have to deal with it. I'd rather have something that just works. Because you get set up with MicroG and get everything going or whatever, and suddenly you just, like, stop getting notifications. In fact, at the minute, even though I'm using gaps on this phone, whenever I get a notification, it seems to be the wrong one. I'll get the previous notification. So I get sent a message, and the notification I get is for the previous, like, message I receive. And it's like, why are these bugs happening? It just really sucks. So at least postmarketOS doesn't do that. Yeah. All right. We should now be ready to boot into Plasma Mobile. Oh, sorry about this light. I'm not sure if there's much I can do about it. Oh, and the camera's turned off again too. Fantastic. Oopsies. Okay. postmarketOS loading. I tell you what, I will turn these lights down. Or off, even. I wonder what's going on here then. Just loading. No postmarketOS for me. OpenRC is running. Starting local. I think we don't have graphics. Plasma Mobile has failed to start, and the problem is that SSH is disabled in these builds for security reasons. So I can't get a shell. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what, like, people think about the solution to the situation of particularly mobile phone OSs at the minute. I know, for example, with Android, there was some. I read an article recently where they compared receiving notifications on like devices that are asleep. Comparing a Pixel 4 and the iPhone 10 or iPhone 11 even. And oh god, iPhones are just so much better. They suspend much more intelligently, and they're able to keep hardware like Wi-Fi active and consuming much less power than on the Google device. It meant that on the iPhone you'd receive notifications quicker if your device was suspended, and yeah, just sucks for Google because the Linux kernel is just not capable of doing that. Intelligent sleep or suspending particular peripherals, it just doesn't really do, to the best of my knowledge. Like keeping Wi-Fi on and suspending everything else, especially with regards to like shutting off CPU cores, is not very easy to accomplish. Hence, Android like will turn Wi-Fi on periodically, turn data on periodically to check for new notifications. But with iOS, they're able to lower that latency quite a lot. And that's definitely one of the issues that we're going to have to solve in mainline. Right now, if you own a PinePhone and you run postmarketOS at least, it just doesn't go to sleep. The display turns off, and some hardware will get turned off. Like, I guess the touchscreen regulators could be turned off, or stuff like that. But yeah, Wi-Fi is just always on to receive notifications. And so it means that the power drain is much higher. I'm not sure if they turn off CPU cores, but you know, there's a lot of like stuff that we have to do in user space to make that happen automatically, or make that happen with like any sort of sensor tool. If you go boot Manjaro on like the OnePlus 6, for example, then it's just it's just a PC. If you try and like if you press the power button, it goes to sleep. Wi-Fi turns off, display turns off. It goes fully like into suspend. And so when you press the power button again to wake it up, because it's a phone, you expect it to just turn on like your Android phone does. And it doesn't, because it has to come out of suspend. It's gone like fully into suspend. It's insane. And it just isn't the behavior that like you expect. So yeah, right. We're gonna have to do our own Plasma mobile install because it looks like this one isn't going to turn on for us, and that sucks. Oops. All right. Now, if you or someone you know is interested in contributing to Linux Mainline on Snapdragon 845 devices, we have an issue tracker. It's not very full at the minute. But it is there, and we want kernel devs. Currently, this kernel fork is maintained by myself and Joel, who works on the Pocophone F1. We have recently merged support for the LG G7 and V35, as well as the Xiaomi Mi 8. Just like initial support with frame buffer for now. And the kind of like, the deal is, this kernel we want to be like shared across distros and stuff. So, pardon me. this is the kernel package in postmarketOS. Mobian are using this kernel too. Ideally, we can then do like Linux stable releases, but it's a lot of work. Doing a 5.12.8 release took quite a long time. We have to merge everything in, ensure that our patches apply properly. Currently, we're carrying way too many patches on top of mainline, which is really not ideal. So at the same time, we're trying to work on upstreaming, but we also want new features to work, because right now there's a lot of people really pushing for like, hey, we want mobile data, and we want like camera and audio and stuff. Recently I took a look at the headphone jack on the OnePlus 6. It works, but there's no way for the hardware to detect when you've actually plugged in a pair of headphones. So you have to change the output manually. Oh, this really is just not gonna boot. Oh, here we go. But yeah, there's lots to do in the kernel. Stable needs to be maintained, and we need to be doing more work. We have these 5.13 issues to debug too. Very exciting stuff. So yeah, one of the other important things that we want to work on is getting support for VBus. So the device, the hardware, is capable of doing OTG, like you could plug in a mouse and keyboard or like a USB hub or whatever. But right now, it's not able to detect when you like put it into OTG mode, and it's like not able to supply voltage. So you can put the device in host mode, but you have to go and modify the device tree and recompile it and build a new boot image and boot that, and then it'll only be in host mode, which is of course not ideal. And then of course you need a powered hub to actually use it, because it can't supply its own voltage. So we need to write a driver for the charger circuitry, so that it can detect whether we should be in host or gadget mode, as well as turn on VBus, and do the like charging rates and stuff for U-Power. Currently, the way that the battery works is quite janky in mainline, unfortunately. And yeah, so that's something else we want to work on. Then of course the headphone jack. We also need to look at building drivers for the camera sensor, because 5.13 has support for CamSS, or the camera ISP like hardware block. It doesn't support all of it. It currently supports enough of the hardware that it can take sensor dumps, which means that once we have a camera sensor driver and we can initialize the sensor, we can take a dump from it. And then we have to process it manually, but we could take pictures. We could support, for example, like Martin's megapixels, which the PinePhone is in a very similar situation. They can take sensor dumps, and then they have to process them manually. They have a pipeline that runs on GPU, which we could most definitely make use of for the viewfinder. So we'd be able to get relatively good performance, and like we'd be able to take pictures on mainline, you know. But that's something that we need to like find time to work on. So yeah, there's a lot to do. Right now I'm trying to get my haptics driver upstreamed, because it's a new driver. It actually turns out that it supports a lot of devices, not just Snapdragon 845, but also the 835 and 820 too. Maybe even earlier. I'm actually not 100% sure, but it's hard for any other device, like maintainers, to make use of it if they have to carry the patches and then like I make changes to the driver and they need those too. It's just awful. So we want to get it upstreamed. How many commits do we have on top of mainline? We currently have quite a few. It's around 50 on my last count. We have some commits mostly used by the Pocophone F1 for stuff that isn't upstreamed yet. There's commits for a DMA mode of the Jenny serial engine, which is responsible for like I2C, UART, SPI, and that DMA mode is needed for some of the hardware on Beryllium, and that's like quite a few patches which have not yet been accepted upstream. There isn't much we can do about them because they aren't our patches. We need to get the maintainer to upstream them. All right, let's see then. Oh, aha, perfect. All right. PM Bootstrap, Flasher, Flash, rootfs, user data. Second time's a charm. And in fact, I will hopefully be sending V2, the haptics driver upload today. I had to make lots of quite significant changes to get it upstream ready. Really like getting drivers and code ready to be accepted into the Linux kernel is no small feat. And I'm not just trying to like bump myself up. Like, no, I send off patches and I get back reviews, basically just making fun of my bad programming, which is understandable because, you know, it's like, it's really important that if code is going to go and land in the Linux kernel, it has to be good and not contain errors or the potential to like crash devices. Security is really important. All right. Flash the kernel, and then we'll be good to go. Forgot to announce the stream on Discord. What a shame. What a shame indeed. Tell you what, if anyone fancies working on some shell scripts or Python potentially, fix this. Right now, it's, yeah, this takes a long time. This runs LDD tree and LDD tree on the Mesa libraries because OSK STL, the keyboard used in the InterAMFS to decrypt the like full disk encryption in postmarketOS, needs GPU. It's GPU accelerated, so you have to bring up like, we have the GPU firmware in the InterAMFS as well as Mesa for like, you know, talking to the GPU. And this just takes a long time. Like, I don't even use a hard drive. This just takes forever, and it runs like every time you do anything boot image related, you get hit with this rather. So yeah, if anyone fancies some fun problem solving, could absolutely use that getting fixed. Oh yeah, the one of the touchscreens on Beryllium, Focal Tech. That does need to be upstreamed. That's quite exciting. Is that? I think that's the one that's just mostly just downstream code. It's gonna be. Ooh, we have UI. All right, I think I should probably report that the Plasma Mobile pre-built doesn't work. Yay. You can see this. Fantastic. Oh dear, now you can truly see how bad this how bad Droid Cam is. I should probably figure out how to fix the scaling. Oh gosh. Scaling. Oh, did I just do it? Does it do it on the fly? That's pretty cool. Oh, now this is nice. Holy shit. It's connected to the Wi-Fi. Oh, there is no text box. Interesting. The keyboard haptics aren't too great. Oh no. And Plasma crashed. Oh dear. Okay. Awesome. We could go to YouTube. Oh. We could fix NTPD. Now that we have Wi-Fi. One of the other rather exciting things that happened recently is that we got a new service called Software Clock Offset, which fixes some issues with the real-time clock. So on the OnePlus 6, in fact, on quite a lot of Qualcomm devices, the real-time clock is read-only. You can't set it, and that's really, really odd. So yeah, if we cat dev no, not dev, oh sorry, where is it? Since epoch, and then if we do the same thing on my PC, as you can see, the digits don't quite line up there. So what's actually happened here is that this RTC is essentially counting from the time when the device was first booted, or like the hardware was like, I don't know, first set, whatever, which is not a very long time. But RTCs are meant to count since the epoch, not since they first turned on. Usually you would just write to the RTC to update it. But unfortunately, that doesn't work here. It just says no. So what we have to do instead is we have this software clock offset package. And essentially what that does is when the device shuts down, it reads the current time, converts it to epoch. And then it reads the RTC time and converts it to epoch, and it finds the difference. And that difference can be used as an offset. So it saves that to a file. And then when the phone boots back up, because the RTC, it still works, you just can't write to it. So you can take the new RTC value, which will be essentially, if you take the time now that the device is booting up again, and you subtract the RTC time where it last shut down, you'd find the amount of time the device has been off. So, you know, like the RTC works, it still counts. You can now take the RTC value, add this offset, and you'll get the correct time. And so it uses that to update the system time, which is fantastic. And it means that you don't have to connect to Wi-Fi every time the device boots up to get the correct time, which otherwise you would, because again, the RTC works, you just can't write values to it. So yeah, that's quite exciting. I am a little bit concerned about, for example, if you're using an alarm app which uses the RTC wake alarm, then you'd potentially run into issues because the alarm app would, or it might just fetch the system time since epoch and use that as its calculations. And so when it writes that to the RTC, what that's basically saying to the RTC is like, if you set an alarm for like an hour into the future, you're actually setting it an hour into the future plus the RTC like offset, because the real-time clock is wrong. It thinks that it's 19th of January 1970, which it isn't. And in fact, I think my RTC got reset because I removed the battery. Yeah, again, there's no way to write it, so that's pretty much what we can do. So what I'm thinking with regards to that is that we might have to try and move that offset into kernel space as a quirk, so that in here you'd have an offset property which can be written to, and then it would store that offset in the kernel. And then when you go to read like from any of these other things, like since epoch, date, time, whatever, it would apply that offset internally in the kernel before giving you the answer. So we'd basically disguise that there's an offset at all from user space, which means that if your alarm app was just reading, when the alarm app writes the wake alarm, we subtract the offset, and then it would work as you'd expect. I think that might be something that, like, again, someone will have to look into at some point, but who knows when that'll be. All right. Oh. Speaker works. Don't really want an Amazon advert. Oh no. The phone cam broke. Not again. The Droid cam is a little bit dead on computer. Hey. Oh. All right. Just a little bit slow now. I see. KDE Plasma is not too bad, huh? There you go. Oh. This isn't too happy at all. And the multitasking view is broken. Fantastic. Oh well. Goodbye droid cam, I suppose. Maybe. Oh dear. Isn't really the sort of debugging that we want to be doing. Yay, okay. Is it working nicely now? No? Yeah? Oh well, I suppose I will leave that be. Right. Yeah. In short, there's lots to do. We've certainly come, oh gosh, quite a long way. But that is that. Yeah. This was going to be a kernel development stream, but unfortunately it's kind of seemed like that wasn't going to be very feasible. And I'm a little bit like worried that I would really mess up and break another phone, which I don't want to do. I think we might finish off here. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I feel like I probably said this last time, but hopefully the next one will be a little better planned out, you know. It's a little bit nerve-wracking to be trying to do kernel development on stream, to be honest, but I think we will get there eventually. And gonna have to find a better camera and find a way to not brick my phone that I'm using to record with. So that will be interesting. Maybe UVC Gadget Android? I don't know. I don't know. In potentially other news, we could. Oh dear, the camera's gone again. All right, here we go. Yeah, OnePlus 6 stuff is great. I'm also kind of working on, or at least interested in, bringing up Linux on this dude. This is an iPod Classic 6th gen. This one in particular is my data driver, I guess. But some initial research with Rockbox has proven that the Linux kernel can boot on this. And in fact, I have. Oh, let me see. built this fantastic iPod UART cable. So this is just a like USB to UART adapter, and then this was like really hard to figure out how to find something like this. What you're looking for is a like dock extender, because you could buy loads of docks for like the iPod Nanos, which older iPods, the classic, wouldn't fit in. So you'd buy one of these, and this would like sit in the dock, and then the iPod would sit on top, because the dock was too skinny, basically. But makes it very easy to solder onto, and it means that I can still plug the USB cable in, so that the iPod doesn't run out of battery whilst I'm trying to develop on it. Yeah, so the Rockbox kernel is also the bootloader. How does that work? It gets flashed into the like, well, internal flash on the iPod, and it's capable of booting Rockbox from storage, as well as the built-in firmware that usually runs on iPods, whatever that's called. And in short, I've already added kind of like janky support to the bootloader so that it can boot the Linux kernel, and an appended device tree blob. Not appended, just the device tree blob. And added early support for the SoC. This carries an ARM 926 EGA-T. Don't know what the -T is, but it's a 216 megahertz single ARM core. Has 64 megabytes of RAM, and yeah, it's fantastic. So as it stands now, the kernel can boot, and it can spit data out over low-level debug UART, which is pretty cool. So you can see the kernel start to boot, but there's no timer drivers yet. That's what I'm working on at the minute. In short, I'm like relatively new to kernel development still, and so working on like a much older, much simpler hardware design to me has been like really cool to learn more low-level things, like how the hardware actually works. I had to learn about physical and virtual memory mappings, and so that's generally been like quite a lot of fun. And I learned a lot just from what I've done so far with this. So yeah, I think it'll be quite exciting to bring this further, bring up the kernel, bring up the display, you know, write a driver for the click wheel, and like, let's be honest, like the iPod Linux project needs to be revived, right? Absolutely. Because we don't have the limitations that they had back in the day, where to even get Linux booting on like embedded SoCs like this required significant amounts of like out of tree patches. But nowadays, Mainline is like really capable, so we can bring this up. I have documentation for a very similar SoC, unfortunately not the one in this. Samsung built this SoC just for Apple, just for this iPod. So there's no documentation, but luckily there's Rockbox, so yeah, we can look at the Rockbox source and do all that. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, then absolutely, like, I guess, tell me. But yeah, I'm going to end the stream here. Thanks everyone who came along. And yeah, again, well, don't stop developing. And of course, happy Pride Month. It is the fantastic month of June. I hope it's going well for you. All right. I've said all of the thank yous. Okay. Yeah. Let me know what you're doing with postmarketOS or Linux at all on your OnePlus 6. I genuinely am very curious to like see what people are getting up to with it. I seem to see that people are doing some like interesting stuff, and I want to know what it is. So yeah,